Okay, yes, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, sorry for the delay, guys. I'm at a conference here in the speaker lounge, so yeah, I wish I could be there in person. Sorry.
No problem. Okay. Can I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, good afternoon. Thanks for attending to our final presentation from our project ArchitectureQuote. Please feel free to ask your questions after the presentation. I am the representative person of the project management team, and I will start with the presentation, and my Danish colleagues will continue with their part afterwards. Next slide, please.
Hang on. All right.
Thank you. So what is the table of content we are going to discuss today? At first, I want to start with what is the request from our project contractor. After that, I will go on to what was our goal and how was our team structured. And my last point will be the milestone plan. After that, the Danish student will take over and we'll talk about research key findings, the interviews, and the questionnaire. Next slide, please. So what was the request of our project contractor, Mr. Taylor Ryan? He wanted that we create a market analysis that includes the needs and behavior of buyers or customers based on questionnaires to have give an insight on the architecture industry through market analysis, and also give an insight with interviews with architects. Also, the interviews will be interpreted after contacting them. The next slide, please. Thank you. What was our goal? We wanted to deliver a report which includes the market analysis and also the interviews of the buyers and the architects. We planned to interview 3 architects in the field of Austria, Germany, and Denmark. And also we planned to interview 10 customers also in these countries with today. Thank you. Here you can see how our team is structured. We separated the whole team into 5 sub-teams: quality team, the research team, the support team, the analysis team, and the project management team. The 4 sub-teams I mentioned first are from Denmark, and the project management team is from Vienna. Each sub-team had one representative person, and only those representative person communicated with each other. Next slide, please. Thank you. And here you can see my last slide, the milestone plan we had. The project started with the kickoff meeting on October the 7th. 2 team members of our project management team traveled to Copenhagen to introduce the project and also themselves. And today is the end of the project with the final presentation. In between, you can see some other milestones we had and we accomplished. Now my Danish colleagues will go on with their part.
Okay, so there's that. Hello from Denmark. So a little bit to start off, we're starting with research. So we researched Denmark, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And we had a few standard categories that we highlighted upon in the key findings in this presentation for you today. We mainly focused on the number of architects, the architectural market value, the amount of building permits, and practices, private or freelance. So looking at Denmark here, we have in 2008, I'm not sure if you can see it, there were 7,000 architects, and up to 2018, 10,300, so a growth of 67%. Not sure if you knew that already. If not, it's a good fact. As well as the architectural market value, also growing at 20% in 10 years, which is a healthy, steady incline, which promotes good market for you. As well as building permits. We only have one statistic of 2018, but judging from the growth of the market, we can infer that the amount of building permits have increased over that amount of time as well in comparison with the market. And moving on to Austria. So Austria is a little interesting. It's a growing architect industry, but the market is rather stagnant. That could be interpreted good or bad. For the better, it's good because it's consistent. It's neither declining or inclining at a bad rate. It's very, with markets, it's good to have consistency, and that's what there is in Austria. As well as the practices and the amount of building permits, very consistent over the years, which promotes solidarity when it goes to moving into a new market. Now I'm going to hand it off to Christopher here. He will explain Germany and Switzerland.
All right, thank you. Going on to Germany, it's by far the biggest market on the European market, with the most architects, the most value, and the most practices. As you can see from the slides, the number of architects have been growing over the past 10 years by 17%, and the market has been growing as well by 25%. So it's really nice growth at the moment. It's also the most number of building permits in all of Europe. And as you can see, the number of practices grows in 2014, and that's probably because a lot of architects were laid off, as they are often the first ones to get laid off under an economic crisis. The number has since been falling again, and people have been rehired into their former firms or other firms. Based on the market research that we found out that some of the best cities to be an architect in was Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, München, and Leipzig. And the first four is because of the architectural style that's based in Germany. And the last one, Leipzig, is just because it's the fastest growing city in all of Germany. Germany is also the country with the highest presence of young architects, showing that a lot of growth will happen in the coming years. Going on to Switzerland, they had a 40% increase by the last 10 years in the number of architects, and it's kind of hard to assess the numbers for Switzerland because of the Swiss mentality for secrecy, so we couldn't really get the numbers everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's the most valuable market per architect, actually. So even though they are only a tenth of the population that Germany is, they are still 1/8 of the German market value. Yeah, and the best cities here are also Geneva, Zurich, and Bern, also known for their architectural style, so kind of makes sense as well. Now we'll go on to the next slide.
Yeah.
Bern?
So after just saying a lot of different statistics, this is just a slide in summation of the 4 countries that we revised. So some of the market findings. Germany does have the largest market of all the countries that we researched, but Denmark also has the fastest and most steady incline growth of the market ever before as well. Moving towards the architect sector, Switzerland does have the highest market value per architect out of the countries. But surprisingly enough, going back to Austria, mentioning that it has a very consistent economy, architectural economy, excuse me, Austria does have a higher earnings per architect than Germany. So the average amount that a architect would receive is 54,000 in Austria, while Germany is 45,000, the mean earnings. And in practices, Germany does have the most amount of private practices and just public practices as well. But on that fact, private practices do limit the amount of freelance architects available for consultation. So that also needs to be taken into account and factor, and that's what we found out with our research. So that's about all for that. So moving on to interviews. Crystal has
We managed to do up to 11 personal interviews, which were conducted in Austria, Denmark, Sweden, and Germany. And they were all personal interviews, either conducted over the phone or in person. And what we learned from that was that firms still mainly get their leads from mouth to mouth or word of mouth or referrals, which is a very classical way to do it. Only one firm actually paid other firms to help them get the leads. So that kind of shows that they have inability to use modern technology to get their customers, and the industry still relies on trust and networking to get the new leads, which means they got to do extensive research to gain more customers. Yeah.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, when we have a look at the analysis part, the first thing is to say that the methodology. It's important to know that we use the model 6-step market research, which is about defining the objective and the problem, and start making a questionnaire and sending it to our network or the people we can reach to get responses on the questionnaire. For research design, we use the exploratory research technique because we don't know that much about architects and the market. So it was, most of it, but it was exploring, the market. Research method, we used on an online questionnaire, and we used face-to-face interviews to get our results and to do the analysis. And it's important to know that our network is between 20 and 29, so most of the responses are, the people are between 20 and 29, and we only get 91 answers, so it's not that reliable that you can actually use it perfectly. Then we go to the results. We get 91 responses, which is 25 responses for already hired ones, like an architect, 26 responses on considering an architect, and 40 responses with that they are not considering hiring an architect, and they never hired once. And the questionnaire run from the 24th of October till the 1st of November. And after that, we started with the analysis. We split up the questionnaire in the wheels, like in will considering an architect and already hired an architect, and I will present the will part. If we look at the potential target group, it's interesting to see that most of the people responded, they are from Denmark and Germany, so that could be an interesting market to focus on. And they are most of the time full-time or students. And also for this is that most of the respondents are between 20 and 29, so probably also a student. Then we look at the age of who is interested in hiring an architect, and most of the people are interested in hiring an architect and in using ArchitectureQuote as a platform to find architects. Then we have a look at the way they will find their most suitable architects. And the conclusion is that most of the people from Denmark and Germany will use their network and online research and word of mouth. And United Kingdom is in this picture 100%, but we only get 1 or 2 responses. So it's not that interesting that it's 100%. But the most important part is that online research is the most attractive way to get in touch with the potential target group. Project related, we have a look at the budget and the size of the projects. And if we look at the square meters and the budget, the most interesting group of projects is the 100 and 200 square meters and 50,000 till 100,000. For this, it's a bit less. Then the area and kind of project. Well, it's quite obvious that most of our respondents are interested in the urban area or the suburb area, and then especially residential and interior design. So that's also good to know for ArchitectQuote that most of the people are interested in suburb and urban. Project related and then kind of project and location. Also with this is most of the people are interested in new construction where we're talking about residentials or renovation. So even for this, it's renovation and new construction, which are maybe a good thing to focus on for architect quotes regarding to our questionnaire. Then the additions for the potential services which architect quote can offer. We ask about the project and expectations for each kind of project. And yeah, the conclusion is that the potential clients or the respondents are interested in every task architect quotes offers on their website. Then the project and concerns, well, money, time, and satisfaction with the end product are the most important ones to talk about with the clients or the potential clients from architect quotes. To get to know how you can prepare for the concerns that they don't happen. And the last is the reasons for being interested in architect quotes. And most of all, it's easier for the process and finding an architect. And also comparing different prices in the architects, and it's faster and people expect that it's most effective, cost effective. But most of it, it's easier in process and finding.
So, like Tessa already said, we split the questionnaire up. She already told you about the will part, and we did that because there are like two different perspectives you can have on it. For the will part, we now have concerns about people that are maybe right in the struggle of like wanting to hire an architect, but maybe never did it. So we also asked people that already built like a house or something. So we could like get more information about that, what they really have done different if they would have to do it again. At first we asked them from where they would come from, and that is kind of the same like what Tessa already said. Most of the people are from Denmark, we asked, and from Germany, so that could be maybe important to focus on because there are also like different things in the different countries you maybe should consider like different rules and regulations. So yeah, that could be maybe interesting for ArchitectureQuote to focus on. We also asked them what how they're planning to find the most suitable architect. There you can see that like the people that are 30 to 39 want to find their architect through an online research. You could like at first think that's kind of weird because you would more expect to for the 20 to 29-year-old people to use online research, but you have to keep in mind that we asked the people about their age when they built this whole thing. So maybe we asked a 60-year-old who said, yeah, I was 25 while I did it, and there the internet was kind of not really available at the time.
Yeah.
So so that's maybe because like why there is this shift in ages here. You can also see that like the network and the word of mouth is really important for the people. So you can see that they kind of want to have a person they can trust, like out of the network or out of the friend or family group. So maybe it would be good for ArchitectureQuote to have like a kind of personal profile maybe, or like to show the people that they can have a close relationship with their architect if they want to. That's a kind of like clear graph we see here. Most of the people wanted to build a residential building where they're living in on their own, or like building it for another person to live in. And the yellow thing here shows that it was mainly a new construction they wanted to build, or like a structural modification you can see here. They weren't that interested in business building, interior design, or landscape, but that's maybe also like because we asked certain types of people that are maybe not like interested in that. Tessa already showed that, and that also is kind of the same because most of the people are concerned about the satisfaction with the end product, you can see here, and the money. So it would maybe be important to like have a clear track of that you're like on the same page with your project, so that nobody like gets disappointed in the end. That's the best thing we could get out of the have part, because we were able to ask the people what problems they had. So that's a very good thing you could consider of like improving through the architecture quote process. They said that they were like the most thing they had a problem with was like finding someone who combines a good experience and see that, yeah, but a good experience and like that it's not too expensive. So that is what's like concerned the people most. Some people also said like that they didn't have problems, but that's mostly because they hired somebody of like a friend or the network. So they were like, okay, it's a friend of mine. I didn't have any problems with them. They also said that there were too many architects, so it was time consuming, which could be a good thing for architecture to solve. And it was hard to get information about the architects, but that's all included into the service, so that could be a very improving thing. Yeah, so we also were able to ask them what advice they would give to themselves if they would have to do it again. And that was mainly that they would want to have multiple estimates to like reconsider, and they wouldn't want to like settle for the first thing they get, and that they would want to know the architects personally in order to build like a trustful relationship. That's what I already said. Like many people were concerned about the relationship they would have to their architect. They also wanted to have a precise vision of their end product and efficient and clear communication.
Hi Taylor, so I'm just going to quickly say something about the end product here. Everything you've seen there is basically our whole report summed down into about half an hour, as close as we could get it. But alongside this, we also have about a 15,000 word report, which will be really good bedtime reading for you. So I will make sure and get that over to you straight after this. Another point as well is that any of the figures, monetary figures you saw in this were all in euros. We asked everyone to do everything in euros, so that can give you a wee bit of clarity just at the end of the project. But if there's anything else, I'm sure Vienna will say, oh, can we just ask some questions from you at all, and I'll try and direct those to the right people in the group who can answer them for you.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, really, really nice job. It's interesting because I've just finished off sending out some grant-related applications, and a lot of the research in terms of the growth that you guys uncovered was exactly what I found in terms of the report specifically towards Denmark. Fantastic on that. I have kind of an anecdote that I've used in a couple of presentations, but I find it to be really relevant to kind of this situation in terms of, you know, you discover that all these architects are, and by the way, can everybody hear me? Or, like, I don't know if,
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The anecdote is very simple. It's the concept that just because you discover something, you could certainly draw one conclusion, one direction, and have the opposite conclusion in the other. So the anecdote is this. In the early 1900s, basically 2 shoe manufacturers out in London sent representatives out to Africa because it was getting carved up and people wanted a developing market and setting kind of the foundation for scaling their shoe companies out there. So both of these guys go out for 2 weeks on end, and they both report back to their companies via telegram. And they basically, the first guy says, the situation is hopeless. These people don't wear shoes. There's no chance that we're going to scale or be able to build in this market. And the second shoe manufacturer representative sends back, this is a perfect market for us. Nobody's wearing shoes. We have all the opportunities in the world out here because it's a complete blue ocean when it comes to shoes. So I think it just depends on how you want to look and interpret the data, and I'm sure you guys have probably battled with a bit of that yourself, is just because something has been this way consistently, does it mean that that is going to be the future? And that's kind of the hope of disrupting any large and old school industry. And make no mistake, this I'm sure you guys have encountered, just trying to get people to use a Google form. They're like, yeah, can't we just do this the old-fashioned way? It's like, it's a fucking form, man. Like, come on, you know? So I think it's kind of cool to see some of those insights that you'll encounter in any industry. So it's very neat to kind of see this throughout the entire process. In terms of, you know, the folks that have responded. So I actually just did a presentation yesterday about kind of user testing and different ways that we can reframe the way that products are kind of pushed towards people. I would love if it's in the report, and I'm sure it's in the 15,000 words, to kind of get a better feel for the demographics, because of course we want to go closest to our network in order to get fast answers in order to complete something. So ultimately, yeah, it totally makes sense that the demographic is fitting or similar to the demographics of people doing the work. So I have no issue with that whatsoever. I think if you are able to at least point out where some of your blind spots are, and maybe there might be inherent biases, and at least acknowledge that, I think it validates yourself as a researcher, but also as a person that has put together kind of a thoughtful process. So if it's in there, fantastic. If not, no worries. I do want to know if it's possible, because I'm sure for those that have done a lot of this research, it's really hard to find like detailed reports on this stuff, because either it's behind a paywall and it's like, well, if you want this, 1,000-page report, you'll pay us $20,000, and it's like, what, are you serious? So there's money in this kind of stuff, just for those that are intrigued by it. But in terms of providing a piece of downloadable content, does anybody have any issue with me putting basically a tripwire funnel to this? So essentially, give me your first and last name if you want to download this and get the 15,000 words. Is that cool that I use that as a piece of downloadable content?
Yeah, I don't think anyone here has an issue with that. That's fine with us.
Cool.
Yeah, the more people who can read it, the better, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah, that's no problem.
I maybe have more of a question for you guys. What was more of the... I love the concept of finding people that might be in the market for architecture services. What was the process for discovery of those people? Or was it just kind of hitting your general network on Facebook or LinkedIn? Or how did you uncover those that were ready to actually seek out architecture services?
I think for the most part, it was a bit of a hit at hope with a lot of social medias being used. We kind of pinpointed LinkedIn as the kind of premier one to use, mainly because most people on there would have people that they've run into either at conferences or through their studies who could be working, be professional, maybe a little bit older, and we thought that gave us the best chance of catching some other people. And I know a couple of the people in here who put it out on LinkedIn had over 1,000 views just on it. But like you say, convincing someone to actually go in and take 5 minutes out of their day to do this report was quite tricky. And then that added with the fact that the questionnaire said straight away, are you interested in anything to do with architecture, yes or no, basically, and then half of them said no straight away. So we lost about half the people. But there's nothing wrong with that, because it gave us a data point, and I think it's representative of the people that we spoke to and of that kind of demographic. But yeah, I think that was a disappointment. That was maybe something for the lessons learned at the end of this. We would go back and maybe change to try and get a little bit more of the demographics out of that, maybe their age, where they lived, and stuff like that as well, just to see, because the fact that they were interested enough in clicking on the Google form says something, I think.
I'm curious, with all the different outreach, did you guys get a chance to experiment with any unique tools that you never had moments or a project to use, like Lemlist or anything like that?
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a question for me or someone else in analysis. Did you use any new tools like Lemlist, the email thing that he was saying for sending out to architects? I remember I know what you're talking about, Taylor, but I don't think we used it.
Yeah.
It's the answer for that. We basically sent out a letter to a lot of architects to try and get them on board, and I think the problem was, and it's in our methodology, is that we just didn't have enough time to talk to those guys for long enough. So what we eventually reverted to was personal contacts for a lot of the guys, and going to events to speak to architects. So we kind of reverted back to the old style of getting things done. The new age stuff,
yeah.
Unfortunately.
I think it's cool to get a chance to pick up and play with new and different tools and get out of the standard comfort zone. And projects like this, especially during school, there's no fucking wrong answers for this kind of stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know, something to just think about, but that's great. I'm really glad that came through. Are there any other questions or things that maybe I can shed some light on that you guys encountered during your research, or anything that you're curious about?
Anything, guys? Anyone? Nope. Silence.
Easy peasy.
So that's us. I don't know if maybe Vienna has something
No.
to add if they want.
No, thank you. We don't have any questions.
Okay, they're all good. They're all good. Okay, well, I guess that's us. Thanks, Taylor, for calling in. I will send over the report to you along with these slides, so that you've got everything. If you have any questions, you can just mail us, and we'll try and answer those questions for you as well.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for all the effort, all the time, and I hope there was a little bit of learning in this in terms of discovery of different ways to look at the industry and different situations that you encounter when you're doing industry research. I mean, it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. I think everybody learned something during this project, so we'll all have taken something from it, good, bad, and different, whatever. But we've definitely all taken something. So yeah, no, thanks. Thanks everyone, I guess. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Talk to you soon, yeah.
All right, see ya. Bye.